So yeah, I mean, you eventually ended up in the VC world. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking of the guy who was in Goa doing economics from
Yeah.
a not so great college with not very ambitious people, then goes to IIM Ahmedabad, probably struggles there for the first few months, probably gets not the best job from campus. You stick around for 2 decades, which is quite admirable in itself. Learned, obviously, like you said, from one of the best in the country. So tell us about how did you enter the VC world? I mean, I've briefly, I mean, I've read your 10,000 word essay. Uh, and just for the benefit of the audience and everybody who's watching, was it like a natural transition into the VC world, or was it something that you had no idea about? Because right now, when I look at your feed, I think you are probably like a VC historian now.
Yeah.
You know exactly what happened 40 years back in the US and
Yeah.
the journey across the world of VC companies. So,
Yeah.
if you can just shed some light about your career transition here and
Yeah.
how scared you were, or was it
Yeah.
natural?
No, it was not natural. I was very lucky to get the job, and I don't think other than Bloom, anyone would have hired me in venture. The truth is that what happens in any org is, after a certain point, either you become a CEO or you're a CXO, very clearly to CXO next year. Else, like, you get squeezed out, and I think that process was on. It was not like I was doing brilliantly in the last year or so. Fortunately, luckily, Karthik Reddy, who had founded Bloom, and we had worked together in Times in a division called Brand Capital, where I'd moved after the TV one. So he reached out one day, and what happened is, I would keep looking for jobs 2011, 12, 13. And a lot of people would say, you worked 14 years in media, like, I be tough for you to kind of, even though with your degree, etc. So I said, look, I'm trapped. Like, it's not very easy for me to kind of get like a good job now. Like, and I might get something, but is it really what I want? And times was okay. There was good enough this thing. So I really said my degrees of freedom are limited. Like, my friends who joined Unilever or McKinsey are getting like terrific jobs. They're able to move on. So I said, look, I have to get out of this trap. And I said, I'd read some stuff by then. I wanted to build a personal brand. So I would write. And that's the journey. I kept writing a little bit. So at least, I have a website. I would keep updating that website with new articles, so that when I go for an interview or something, they'll look at it and say, okay. Yeah.
So, guys, I mean, if you feel that right now you have to work really hard to build your resume and prepare for interviews, that happens even
Yeah.
at 40 as well.
Yeah, I would say my writing is far more important than my IIM degree. I'll put it this way: if tomorrow IIM comes and says, remove this degree, there was some issue, you remove it. Don't even show this, and you can't come to any institute, this thing, etc. And the choice was, oh, there's your website that's going to get deleted, and you're not going to be shown that. I would say, like, forget my IMA degree. I don't need it. I don't even need a degree. My writing is my degree, right? So the I would say, like, I mean, 4 to 5, 6 pieces that I've written, they are seminal, influential pieces. I've seen founders come and show it to me on their phone. They've saved that. Okay, they have written to me saying, like, they've reached out to Bloom because of you. To me, that's far more important. That's my resume. Okay, that's my degree. Okay, so 2018, one day, Karthik Reddy reached out and said, look, just be curious. Have you ever thought about venture? And this is movie called Jerry Maguire. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a little old now. So there's a famous line in which this woman says, and he's trying to woo her to join the company, saying, and he talks long and hey, whoa, away, etc. And then she says, "You had me at hello," like, So it's a great line, and I think it's sort of. I told Karthik later, you just had me at, have you ever thought, but it took a long time to join because he himself was not sure, am I the right person? He was talking to a few other people. 8 9 months of conversations. I met everyone in Bloom. And but over time, I felt confident that this was the one. And I think from his side, he felt like I was a student of the industry. I would bring him facts and I would talk about it, and he would say, like, you're not even in the industry. Seem to know more about it. Like, used to say. And so I was like an anthropologist, historian of the industry from outside. So some of that helped. But really, other than Bloom, no one would have looked at me. I was 43. I had 20 years in analog company, not a digital company, not uh, not worked on, not from Times Internet, from the print side. I'd not started up before. I'd never been an investor. In fact, I thought one day you would come back and say, Ki, Sajid, we thought about it. It's very difficult to convince other people. But finally it happened. I joined and I think my life changed. So one thing I would say is a lot of people try to, your life is never like this. Your life is a lot of squiggly lines, go up, go down. It's like snakes and ladders. But I see this with a lot of successful people. They go back and they just correct it. And all of those imperfections are glossed over. I'm like a Taleb fan, and one thing I said is like I try and read every book of Taleb's, and
Nassim Taleb.
Nassim
People-
Taleb, yeah, Anti-Fragile, Black Swan, etc. So one thing I said is I'll never smoothen out any imperfection. Jo hai main bolunga. I could have created this thing that, oh yeah, it happened naturally and all. Nothing like that. I don't think I'd have got into any other VC fund. Karthik took the chance. He took the risk, but Bloom is that kind of a fund, right? And that's paid off for them, I presume. And it's worked for me. So that's the story. Yeah.
Super interesting. Now, for the benefit of everyone, and because I know that most people still don't understand it, what does a VC do? Okay, how would you explain it to people who are probably trying to understand about it for the first time?
Yeah. Very simply, VCs raise money from people called LPs, limited partners, who could be very big financial institutions like pension funds, insurance companies, universities, or very wealthy family offices like Bill Gates, Narayan Murthy, etc. They create a product. It's like a mutual fund. It's a closed-ended mutual fund. It's not open to subscription. It invests in, instead of public companies, invest in private companies. And it gives money to startups. There are different VCs who invest in different stages. So we invest in seed to pre-series A stage, sort of like, there are Series A investors, Series B investors, etc. And we typically invest in tech-focused companies. Now, a lot of people look at it and say, oh, very glamorous. You give money to founders, etc. And I suppose, and in fact, there's an article coming. It was inspired to kind of write it. It's on my website. It's actually the leading article on my website. And it's about career advice to people who want to get into venture. So some of you can check it out. In that, I argue that this notion of seeing the VC as you investing in founders, where you buy a stake, is wrong. The best in fact, I say that there are two tiers in VC. There's a bottom tier and a top tier, or a lower tier and upper tier. The lower tier founder has no choice. Whatever money you give, he's grateful to accept. He or she is grateful to accept. In the upper tier, that VC is chasing founders, and the founder decides who I want. And what I do is I aspire to only be in the upper tier. I want to work with the best founders. I get excited. I get goosebumps when I work with great founders. To work with those founders, I need to convince them that for your project, for your initiative, for your company, take my money. Don't take that other VC's money. Take my money, take my expertise, take my time, take Bloom's support time, and pay with equity, which will hopefully go up in value. That's what I do. My job is to reach out, connect, engage, persuade great founders who have choice to take my money. And I sell the Bloom brand of capital. Like somebody else is selling a Nexus brand of capital, a Sequoia brand of, or Peak 15 brand of capital, and so on. Yeah.
MBA colleges serve, a mentor actually told me this, MBA colleges serve more as a placement agency more than, an educational institution. So, I mean, it's great for people who are looking for placements after an MBA, but do you think it is also, helpful for people who are trying to start something of their own?
Yes and no. I would say not really, to be honest. If I have to say, I don't think MBAs and startups necessarily go well together today. Okay? That is not to say that an MBA is at a disadvantage. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying there's no overwhelming advantage to having an MBA. It's a bit like what GP said about having 3 years of WorkX. It's good. But there's no real big advantage beyond that because, So I would say your question, if you're looking to start up, time is of the essence. There is a reason why it's the right time to start something. Okay? and doing an MBA 2 years, you're not going to learn anything more. And a lot of the MBA teaching is not specifically the way startups work. It's a very it. I mean, it's good. It's very good. The principles, etc., are there. But I think startups work very differently. And YC, for example, has a lot of very interesting, like a startup MBA program, like, how to, and I think those would be far more important.